What comes first? Political correctness, wokeness, cancel culture, academic freedom? Does one or the other precede the others? How does the formulation of it
the truth was, I was having a little bit of difficulty making out a clear-cut distinction between political correctness and cancel culture, because there's, and also they all became infused with identity politics.
Yeah.
So it was hard to
contextualize it.
Demarcate it, to say this is cancel culture, this is identity politics, this is political correctness, because they're all pretty similar.
How did the formulation of society, American society or American governance, comes from Greece, right? For the most part,
Comes
Greece. The Greeks.
No, I mean, obviously there's an element.
Democracy itself. Yeah.
Right, there's an element, but I think trying to trace out a kind of direct link between A and B is kind of crazy.
It wouldn't be wholesomely holistic, like yes, them, only. No, obviously other things as well. Hammurabi law, etc.
A thousand other things,
sure.
Not just other things. A thousand other things.
Okay. Well, I guess whatever significance America founded itself upon, which is like related to cancel culture, political correctness, etc., etc. The root of America's founding from that angulation. How did they treat cancel culture, political? You know, did Greece? What's it called? The Greek Empire.
Greek, ancient Greek.
Yeah, but it's still in my mind. It's more like formal term. Anyways, pretty much, yeah. Did they deal with cancel culture? And
one of the classic examples of cancel culture is Socrates.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, exactly.
Forced to drink the hemlock.
Yeah.
Because of his. The claim was, I don't know how.
Corruption of
youth.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say that, for me, the question is not so much a genealogical one, namely how we trace the origins of American values and the American system. For me, that's an interesting question, and certainly one which with about 100,000 books have been written. For me, the question is, if you're committed to a radical transformation of society, and even at my ripe old age, I don't believe I'll live to see it, but I remain convinced that this society is so completely unjust. And so, it's really, you have to say, there are elements of insanity in our society. I don't want to get too far off track, but one thing that always strikes me is, just one typical example, which you will be able to relate to. So everybody agrees, as a objective matter, our resources are finite, that there are a lot of people on this planet, and that if we're going to make this thing called the planet Earth work, we have to some extent, we have to curb our consumption of natural resources. They're running out, okay? That's a simple proposition. But then, what is the motor of our economic system? What is the motor of our economic system? It's consumption. That's not an abstract idea. Let's take, as you know, about 60% of sales, by retail sales, they occur around Christmas time. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, 60% of a store's sales occurs during those 6 weeks, right? Okay. So 60%, okay?
Yeah.
So every year around Christmas time, they start talking about, did a lot of people buy things? Were there a lot of sales? Were there a lot of sales? Were there a lot of sales? And as you know, if their sales are weak, it's a disaster for our economy. So they always look at Black Friday. What were the sales like? Okay?
Yeah.
And one of the motors of our economy is what's called consumer spending. Consumer spending up, good thing. Consumer spending down, bad thing. Now ask yourself a simple question. If the Earth's resources are finite, if they're finite, then if sales are low, that should be a good thing. If retail sales are low, that should be a good thing. If consumer spending is low, that should be a good thing. The point being, there's simply a fundamental contradiction between the motor force of our economy, consumer spending, sales, and the objective fact that our resources are finite. You should be happy. Fewer people bought cars, fewer people bought refrigerators, fewer people bought all of these items which are exhausting our planet's resources or causing pollution in our planet.
Oh man, yeah, that doesn't sound like abundance to me, Mr. Finkelstein. So, no, I'm just kidding.
So,
yeah, I got you.
Right. So, in order to radically transform our society, we need to be clear-headed about A, the nature of the problems we face, B, the goals that we aspire to, and C, what's the best way to organize in order to achieve the goals to which we aspire. And that requires clear-headedness, rational thought, clear-headedness and rational thought. And the cancel culture, it requires truth. Clear-headedness is just another word for truth. Clear thinking, rational thinking, truth. And the cancel culture wants to impose certain opinions without testing the validity of those opinions through free and open discussion.
Well, I think a lot of cancel culture would agree, the cancel culturists would agree with you in this perspective that, you know, we need to kind of not be so capitalistic, not be so consumeristic, etc. Consumerist, etc., etc. Right?
Probably.
It's more so the ideological belief systems of social structures, more interpersonal rapport, relations.
I agree with that, except for one thing.
You know what is great though? The people who are now my age, even younger, they're going to be the future police chiefs in 20, 30, 40 years from now. No, you don't think so? What do you mean?
Listen, the institutions are more powerful than the individuals that occupy them.
Sure.
Once you get into that position, first of all, you wouldn't get into the position. You wouldn't get into the position unless you have already proven to the powers that be that you will do what needs to be done.
Who are the powers that be?
The powers that be are the ones who are the beneficiaries who profit from this society. What you're saying is kind of like the whole Obama myth, that somehow this community organizer, I mean, he was as much of a community organizer as I'm a member of the Bolshoi Ballet, but this community organizer, that he's going to get into power and change everything because he's so cool, and he's so chill, and he's so hip. They vet very carefully the powers that be. They vet the candidates. They know who will work for them and who won't. And once they get into office, they know exactly what they have to do. And of course, Obama, everybody he chose in his cabinet, whether it was Larry Summers, who was in the who was in the Bill Clinton cabinet, Timothy Geithner, Robert Gates, who was the Secretary of Defense for Bush. He chose all these very safe people who were going to do exactly what the ruling elites wanted them and him to do. So this idea that your generation is going to occupy these positions and they're going to change everything, no, they're not going to change anything.
Is change does change happen in America?
Yeah, what we have to do is, and we're rational, we go back in history and we look at those points in time.
So it is possible, right?
Yeah, I think
Things
the
evolve naturally. And we can learn women's rights,
right,
civil rights,
right, ending slavery, yeah,
all sorts of stuff.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
yeah.
I should know this stuff, but I don't. But those are the main ones. The point being, though, is that it takes time. It's slow and it has to be fought for. You know, good has to be fought for. So it does take time.
Frederick Douglass famously said, "Power never concedes anything without a demand. It never has. It never will."
Sure.
So it's going to be a long struggle. It always is.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is, as I like to tell people, everyone makes mistakes in life. There's no getting around that. The challenge is to learn from the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
There are those who, you make an error, you sit down and you deeply reflect, what is the lesson to be learned from that mistake? And it's the same thing in politics. Errors, of course, occur, but the important thing is to learn from the mistakes, to analyze them. And that was one of the purposes behind writing this book, to say, you know, look, I'm coming to the end of my life. I experienced, I would say, quite a lot. And this is my assessment. This is what I learned from my experiences.
Beyond learning specifically, part of learning would be to
look,
change, adapt the way you think as well. Because you can touch the stove and get burned, and that's the reaction, and you learn that small little thing. But to maybe understand a more of a deeper context, and
it takes a lot of application, mental application, in order to try to make sense of what you've passed through.
And this is why I come back to the point of, you know, some of you throwing the fishing rod out there, folks looking into then your case, who do want to get into the specifics. Yeah, that's very important. I forgot where I was going at that point, but anyways. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Cancel, that was Aristotle. Cancel culture is, it's not able particularly to achieve that.
There's, as I say, it's a substitution of a mallet, a hammer, for persuasion. You have to convince, you have to persuade, and the way you convince and persuade is by answering all the objections.
Yeah. You know, folks, the world is still living for itself in a lot of ways. You know, we get Bezos doing what he's doing in terms of, you know, giving money, donating money, whatever, however it's referenced as.
It's a life insurance policy.
Yeah, sure. The world is still based upon who you know, but more importantly as well, it seems, who you can influence, who you have influence over. That's, you know,
we have.
That's a shame. That's what keeps things.
No, I think that's a good thing.
You think so?
Sure, because once Bernie Sanders was given a platform via the Democratic Party primary, he was able to influence a lot of people. He was able to persuade a lot of people.
Sure.
People found what he said convincing, and I think that's the way you build a movement. You have to persuade people that what you're saying is sensible, what you're saying is realizable, and what you're saying is worth fighting for. And that's what Bernie did. He said, this is common sense. How can it be that in the richest country in the world, we don't have a Medicare for all when every other country in the world has a medical insurance for its population? Then he said it was realizable. Look at Scandinavia, look at this country, look at that country. And then he said we have to organize together. And this is how we organize. That was a very positive message.
But there will always be that aspect of sellouts, right?
Yes, and I say, in my opinion, it's a particularly difficult problem now.
Yeah.
Because the ruling elites have so much money.
Yeah.
They have so much money. I mean, you're a nice guy, could you resist if Bezos gave you $100 million? Could you resist it?
Do you have a cell phone? You don't have a cell phone.
No. Buddy, we were born without a cell phone, so we will live and die without one. What?
That's not a bad thing, man.
How did this woman desert you?
Oh, yeah, it's alright. Yeah. No, it's fine. Should I call?
The thing is, I would say, tell her to, I'll talk to her to come over, but it's too late now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's true. Well, zooming out for the bigger picture, as Jonas would say, how do you now view the role of academia in knowledge production in society, focusing on Israel and Palestine as an example? How good do you think the current academic work is, and is there an alternative? Can we really do without academia and credentialed professionals? Do you see enough good work coming from other sources? It's not the questions, but it's good.
Look, academics have a lot of time in their hands. They have the biggest luxury in God's earth. They get to spend their time thinking about things, reading about things. It's a real luxury. It's a real pleasure. You can't call what academics do, you can't really call it work in the sense of something that's
Toil. It's not,
what?
It's not toil.
It's not really toil.
Yeah.
You know, it's not easy to research, right, and things like that.
Yeah.
But there's a certain kind of pleasure that you gain from doing it. You know, the gratification of having accomplished something, having achieved something, having even just understood something. That's a very good feeling. So, I wouldn't call what academics do, I wouldn't call it work. But I would also say they do have the potential to do a lot of good, because they can clarify issues for people. They can explain how things work in a way that most ordinary people aren't able to do because they don't have the time to do the research. And they can come up with a lot of interesting and useful facts to help a cause.
Yeah.
So I would never say that academia is irrelevant or that we can safely ignore what academics publish, what they speak on. What I would say is, on the other hand, that in the humanities, there's been a complete corruption of intellectual life. What do I mean by that? Okay, I'll give you an example. I had a student last semester, I'll give him his name because I like him a lot, Nukinsin Daristal. I think he's from Haiti. Very smart guy. He has this incredible capacity to listen. I've never, I think in all my years of teaching, I never met a student like this. You can actually look at him and watch him processing information, not just coming from me, but from the other students. He's a listener. It's a real gift to be a listener. And he was a fine student. And at the end of the last semester, he came up to me after class and he said, "Look, can you be my mentor?" Which I just found a really brave statement. You know, just come up, "I'd like you to be my mentor." As in, I'm serious, I need some help, I want you to help me. Well, of course I wouldn't say no. In fact, of course, I would say yes. To make a long story short, we discussed at some length what should be his major, what should be his minor. because he wants to be a top-notch lawyer. So I told him, you know, my opinion, if you want to pursue law, you should major in philosophy, because that's going to help you learn how to think. And a lot of law is the ability to analyze, to think. And to minor in English, because English is, you have to write briefs, you have to present yourself in court, you need to know how to put together an elegant sentence and an elegant argument. So I said philosophy and English. Now, what happens? I say, okay, our first step is, let's go on the Hunter College website. I've been teaching at Hunter College. And let's choose courses. I go to the philosophy department. We start with philosophy. I don't even think you would believe it if I told you. I will show you if you like. You can put up the image when you when you post the interview. The philosophy department for fall 2022 was offering 3 courses. 3 courses. You know, a typical department offers like 20, 25. 3 courses. I was shocked. I was actually shocked. 3 courses. 1 on the scientific method, 1 on introduction to philosophy, and 1 on the Stoic philosophers, Stoicism. But that wasn't a big choice to choose from. So now we go to English, okay? What are the English courses? I wanted him to take some courses in British literature, where he's going to read solid novels by the great British writers. Nice 6 or 8 novels, each of them 1,000 pages, and really get him to learn that English. You know, what do I see? I would even bring it up for you now. Filipino-American writers, Mexican-American writers, Puerto Rican-American writers, Black American writers, women writers, trans writers, gay, what was it called? A queer melancholia. This is English. This is the English department. There was 1 course on British writers, a survey course, and 1 upper level course, a very upper level course on Shakespeare. Everything else is just identity politics. Native American writers. This is terrible.
Got you. Who do you think influences these decisions?
Moronic professors.
And they are incentivized by who? Or by what?
First of all, most of them are illiterate. They've never read a novel themselves. No, it's true. You know, that's a fair question. Who incentivizes them? A lot of academia is just filled with people who want to be hip radicals.